Reb Adam Baal Shem, with his dying wish, instructed his son, Rabbi Moshe, to go and find the Baal Shem Tov and give him a specific sefer, a specific book. So Rabbi Moshe went and found the Baal Shem Tov. Years later, this is where our story begins. In 1719, the Baal Shem Tov could be found in the Beis Midrash in a town called Okopi. Him and Rabbi Moshe would be there studying this book in the study hall. One specific day, a group of travelers from the town of Iasi came to this study hall where the Baal Shem Tov and his student were studying, and they were going to stay there the night. During this time, the Baal Shem Tov and his student couldn't learn because they didn't want the secrets of this book to be spread out quite yet. So they waited. In the meantime, they listened as these travelers talked about themselves and whatever they talked about. And they noted that there's one man specifically, a very poor-looking man, that they all spoke about as being a very righteous man, a tzaddik. Even though he was so poor and lowly, they called him Mordechai the tzaddik. So the next day, the group of travelers got up and they all left. But Mordechai stayed, and he stayed there reading his Gemara. So he stayed 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, and he kept staying there, and so eventually the Baal Shem Tov and a student who couldn't study decided to go speak to him. So Baal Shem Tov went, and he asked this man, he said, I hear that in the town of Iasi, where you're from, there's a shul that was discovered by some students, or some children. He says, it's true. This shul was home to a very big Kabbalist, a very esoteric man, who was called by the name the Shari Tzion, after the book he wrote, Sefer Shari Tzion. He said this man would daven every day, and his Sefer, his book, was focused on the Tikkun Chatzot, the midnight lamentations for the destruction of the temple. And so, after he passed away, another very righteous man, a Kabbalist named Rabbi Naphtali, came, and he used to pray in the exact same spot. And one day he inquired about a gravesite behind the shul where a married couple had died on the very day of their wedding. And he went there and he prostrated himself and he was crying and praying over their grave. So the Baal Shem Tov was very intrigued. He said, where's the Sefer? Can I buy this book? He says, well, I have the original with me, but I think it would be very hard to get. However, I'd be willing to give it to you for free as long as you promise to do the midnight lamentations, Tikkun Chatzot. So the Baal Shem Tov agreed. He said, I'm not a very learned man, so this will satisfy me very well. I'll be able to pray with it. So Mordechai the tzaddik gave him the book and then packed up his stuff and left, never to be heard from again. And the Baal Shem Tov and his student continued their studies, and every night he would get up and he would pray this prayer. And so one day, him and his student were studying, and they were struggling with one part. So his student tried to call down the name of an angel, the angel of Torah, to come and help illuminate this idea. But he messed up the pronunciation, called down the angel of fire, and a great fire broke out. So after everything was resolved, he tried again to call the angel of Torah, but this time it cost him his life when he messed up the pronunciation, and he passed away. Having nothing to hold the Baal Shem Tov in this place, he left Okopi and went to the town of Brody, which references a previous story I've told, where he finds Chana, his wife, and he settles down there in the town of Brody. So years pass while the Baal Shem Tov is in the town of Brody, and he'd oftentimes go to the market where he'd find the travelers from the town of Iasi. In this marketplace, he'd ask these people if they'd ever heard of Mordechai the tzaddik. They never have. No one's heard of this man, no one's seen of him. So eventually the Baal Shem Tov resolves, I'm going to the town of Iasi to figure all this out. So he goes to the town, he finds the shul, the synagogue, and he goes and he prays there where the righteous men before him did. And just like the Rabbi Naphtali did, he goes and he prays at the gravesite behind the shul of this married couple. And while he's there, he gets a divine revelation. We call it a Ruach HaKodesh, that there's going to be a very harsh decree against this town, that a third of the Jewish population are going to pass away. They're going to die. That's the decree. So the Baal Shem Tov prays with all his heart, with all his soul, and manages to pause the decree for 200 years. And he calls up, he writes a letter to his friend to verify that this is the case, and his friend comes to the place as well. And this is all noted when the Baal Shem Tov told it to his disciple, which cites another story I've told before, the rabbi of Polnoi, that became a very big follower of the Baal Shem Tov. He writes this in his Sefer, told us Yaakov Yokov, in the Parsha Ki Tisa. And so the Baal Shem Tov managed to forestall this decree. But as it happens, 200 years later, to the date, I think it was June 29th, 1941, the Nazis committed a huge massacre in this town of Iasi and killed about a third of the Jewish population, just as decreed from previously. But it's asked, what did the Baal Shem Tov pray when he was standing on this gravesite? Well, it turns out that the prayer he gave was a prayer from Yecheskel. This prayer focuses on the time to come, when everything will return to its completeness and where things will be right again. So while the ending of the story may not seem so positive, we see that the solution, the real antidote to the poison, is in the prayer itself. And so that's where we must continue to go. Continue to pray for the resolution of everything in this world, and we'll see ultimate completeness in the right time. Have a great week. God bless.